Communication with your wedding guests is one of the most important ways to ensure that your wedding goes smoothly and everyone enjoys it. In this episode, I'll take you through my ideal guest communications plan for your Italian wedding. Ciao, I'm Lucy. I'm an Italian wedding planner and founder of La Lista. The La Lista website is designed to make sure your Italian wedding planning is hassle-free, calm, and really enjoyable for you. Each week I'm here with planning wisdom for couples planning Italian weddings. So let's get on with it. So my background is actually in marketing and communications, and I love a comms plan. So I like to think of your guests as an audience. So I want to get into the mindset of your guests. Some of them will be used to traveling, they know what they're doing. Some of them may not have travelled much recently, especially with COVID. Some may feel uncertain, they may not have been to Italy before, and they may feel like it's a little bit too far removed. So we want to make them feel comfortable and in control, and we do this by giving them lots of information. Not only will this help them feel better, it will actually save you time answering questions, getting back to people, and fielding all of that information that they're trying to get from you. If you can put everything into one plan and in one place, it will make your life so much easier. So all Italian weddings have different timelines. You may have 2 years to plan your wedding, you may have 6 months, and that will affect how and when you communicate with your guests. Today I'm going to talk about a plan that's for a wedding that's maybe 18 months to 2 years in the making. So usually the first time that you tell your guests something about your wedding is once you've booked the venue. So once you've got your venue and you've got your date secured, that is the time to send out a version of a save the date. This piece of communications would have your wedding events on. So for example, it might say 8th to the 10th of August 2024 in Puglia. This may be a digital save the date, so you can send emails to everyone with a digital version, and that can come for free with some wedding websites. Or you could send a paper version, so they get a postcard or something similar that actually just says that key information and gets them to just make sure that that date is held in their diary. If you have got the time and a little bit more information at this point, it can be quite good to build a wedding website so that this can then go on your save the date and guests have that link from the start. The website might be the bare bones of the information. It may just have a page about you, a page about the wedding dates and the events, and that's it for now. At this point as well, you may also want to have an option A and an option B. So A might be for the guests that are staying at your venue. You could say something like, we've held accommodation at our venue for you, more details to follow. And then your option B could just say nothing at all about the accommodation. And then there's this point about a year from your wedding where the flights tend to be released. This is a really good time to speak to guests and prompt them to think about looking into their flights and accommodation. Post-COVID, everything is a lot busier, and actually accommodation gets booked up a lot quicker than it used to. Flights also are going up in price all of the time. This is a really good moment to say to guests, get out there and start having a look, and then you've done all you can. Some guests will go ahead and book things, some won't, and they will have to deal with the prices and the availability that comes down the line. At this point, you may update your wedding website if you've got one. You may put on the accommodation options that you'd like to give to guests that aren't staying at your venue. It's a really good idea to try and control this a little bit and make suggestions that are close to the venue, but also good quality, nice places to be, so that you know that your guests are going to be comfortable and happy. This also means that you control where any transport might have to go on the wedding day. Now, in Italy, places are extremely spread out. You can have a lot of problems with transport if you don't try and kind of control where people are going to stay. Guests often stay miles and miles away, or they stay somewhere that's up a little dirt track that a bus can't get to. If you're really clear that you've vetted these places, that they're going to be easy to get to, short distances, it can really help your planning, your transport costs, but also the guest experience. They don't want to be on a bus at the end of the night, maybe drunk, winding down a road for an hour or two. That is just no fun for anyone. This is another point where you may split out your comms. So you might have an A option where guests that are staying on site at your venue or that you've held rooms for, you actually communicate this now. So you'd say something like, we've held a room at the venue for you. This is the cost of it. This is the details. If you're not looking to have this room, please let us know so that you can then fill that room with somebody else. And then your option B, which is your generic, these are the places to stay, go ahead and book one. As we draw closer to the wedding, so now we're about 6 months out, we might send out the invites. Usually this is kind of the winter before your wedding. Thinking about the timing of this, obviously Christmas isn't a particularly good idea to send out an invite. It's a busy time. People are probably not going to really look at it. It might kind of get lost amongst the noise of Christmas. So it can be good to send it out earlier, so November time, or just after, so January, February. I quite like the early in the year part where maybe January is a bit bleak and then you get this invite for your wonderful Italian wedding. What's more exciting than that, hey? So this is your formal invite. You may print a formal invite with a bit more information for guests, or just a moment where you communicate to guests again. At this point, your website should be pretty much complete with all of the details of your events, all of the timings of those events, where they are, where the transport's going to be provided. I've talked about a wedding website a lot. It's not for everyone, but there are some real benefits to it. Not only is it somewhere that you can consistently update with fresh and up-to-date information, it's also really good for RSVPs, because instead of having a big paper form that people might have to send back as part of your invite, you can have a digital one and it collects everything for you in a nice, neat spreadsheet. Also, when you're RSVPing to an Italian wedding, you don't often just have dietary requirements that you need to capture. You want to know whether people are coming to multiple events, whether they want transport to those events, the address of where they're staying so that you can provide transport for them, and many other things. So that is why a kind of digital form can just be really helpful. Then there's this point where you're just a couple of weeks out from the wedding. Everything's going ahead as planned. It's all very exciting. Your guests are raring up to travel. You're probably about to hit off to Italy. It's really nice to just get something out to guests before you leave and get on the plane knowing that you've updated everyone. So this might be final updates to your website. So things like any changes to timings of any events, bus timings. So if you've got a bus going around collecting people, you'd be putting the different times that it collects at different points. You might share some other details. If it's going to be particularly hot, you might advise people on things to bring, where to meet. You might be sharing your wedding planner's phone number so that people can contact them if they get into any trouble. It's just a good thing to plan for this moment where you update everyone a final time. And then obviously you'll have your wedding, and then you need to thank your guests. It's really important to send a big thank you after your wedding. Maybe your thank you cards might take a while to get sorted, but I'd recommend sending some sort of update email to everybody, just thanking them for coming, and maybe a couple of your favourite moments of the day, just to really show how much it means to you that they came. I know it does, and I can't even tell you how amazing it is when you're there doing it, but this can just mean a lot to your guests, and it's a really nice thing to just have in your mind to do straight after your wedding. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for being here. My mission is to help as many couples as possible who are planning Italian weddings. I want them to have the best, calmest, most fun experience they possibly can in their planning. You can help me do this by sharing this video, commenting below, or subscribing. Thank you. And remember, I'm always cheering you on in your Italian wedding planning. I'll see you next week.